Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Ten of Swords, Creation, issue number 1, and this is actually part 1 of 22. It used to be part 1 of 16. Kind of like the opposite of the way that editing works, right? Like, editing is usually supposed to take things away, and we talk about how there are no editors in comic books anymore, and all of a sudden we get somehow things have been added on because writers, for the most part, haven't had anything to do since the COVID situation. So that's really weird. But anyway, let's get talking about this comic book. I'm not just going to be talking about this comic book. I'm going to be talking about the future of this comic book because I can read tarot cards too. I'm going to be talking about tarot cards, how important they are to stories and not. And I'm going to be talking about a lot of things in this comic book. Also, towards the end of this comic book, I'm going to be talking about people being triggered by a negative review. Yeah, I'm going to be bringing up some topics in regards to Giant Size X-Men, the Storm issue, because that was a very fun one. Anyway, guys, let's get first talking about who made this comic book. And actually, first, I'll let you know, I wasn't a huge fan of this comic book. I didn't mark out for a single thing that happened in this comic book. I didn't get, frustrated with anything. I just kind of looked at like, okay, kind of saw that coming. Okay, this isn't revolutionary. Okay, this doesn't float my boat. Okay, I literally saw this exact thing before. I'm going to get into a lot of that good stuff. So this is going to be a less than favorable review. If that's all you need, it's been good having you. Otherwise, let's get trudging on. Ten of Swords, Creation, issue number 1. Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard are the writers. Pepe Larraz on art. Marty Gracia on colors. And VC's Clayton Cowles doing the letters. Tom Mueller doing the design. Pepe Larraz and Marty Gracia did the regular cover. I have the regular cover, the cover 1, cover A. And there's a whole bunch of variant covers out there. I show most of them. There might be one that I don't show, but it looks a lot like this. It's just you see the pencils at the bottom. Aside from that, Jonathan Hickman is still the head of X, and Jay Bowen does production. Stanley Jack Kirby created the original X-Men and the concept of mutants, so let's move on from there, my peeps, shall we? A lot of people show up in this comic book that are not mentioned in the beginning of this comic book. They always show who's going to be a major player in the comic book. And, minor players don't usually get a mention. Sometimes they do whatever. In this particular case, a lot of people got mentions that aren't really in the comic book except for a couple of panels, and they don't really have anything important to say or do in this particular issue. So I feel like this is more of, these are the people who are going to be pretty important in the event. But at the same time, other players aren't shown at all, like Saturnyne isn't shown. Disclaimer, as I mentioned in the This Week in Comics that I just put out yesterday, where I go to my local comic book store and I show you a lot of the new comic books that are coming out. Some I'm interested in, some that I'm not, and a lot of the new collectibles coming out. I mentioned that I don't really know too much about Saturnyne. It's true. I actually don't. I've mentioned, full disclaimer, that I was not a huge fan of the original Excalibur book. I'm not a fan of slapstick comedy. It's just not something I usually get into. I liken it to the Naked Gun movies, which I can watch and just be like, oh, that was actually a funny part. But for the most part, nah, I'm okay. I don't need to watch these for the most part. I'd rather just do something else. I don't find any real value in these, or including entertainment wise. So I didn't like the original Excalibur book. I didn't like, therefore, a lot of what was happening in the current Excalibur issue, because Tini Howard actually did a really good job of bringing this, current run, the 12 issues, much like the original run of Excalibur. So it was just modeled after an idea that I really didn't like for the most part. Anyway, here we get another attempt at doing that at the very beginning. There's this guy who's he's the messenger. He's like, I am a king. I'm important, blah, 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 blah. Let me get my big paradon and let me fly over and give word to Saturnyne and maybe I'm pronouncing her name wrong. Oh, well. And let me explain things. And it's very whatever, but Saturnyne here she's supposed to be somebody who's very important and somebody who's very haughty, haughtier than the haughtiest of the haughty, because this messenger was haughty to begin with. It's like, hey, dude, you need to go right now. You need to get out of here because the guys are right behind me and they're about to kill me. So this guy goes into, I have outlived 3 queens and not a single one. Dude, who gives a flying funk? Shut up. Oh my, I got so annoyed reading that. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I realized later on the whole thing was done to be slapstick. And I'm like, for me, that just feels like a slap in the face. And it's not personal, so I know it's not really a slap in the face. Nobody wrote this just to piss off Professor Bill. But again, it just turned into slapstick with, like, what? I can't hear you. What? Could you say that again? The writing was really small, and yet I was still able to read it. Because I just had to focus the glasses the right way. I was still able to read it, so the whole thing just wasn't impressive to me, especially when we're supposed to take, like, for a lot of people, remember, John Byrne rule, I bring it up often, every comic book that you create is somebody's first comic book. So if this is somebody's first comic book, if nobody was reading the Hox Pox or the Dawn of X-Men stuff before, and they just jumped on because like, oh, this is supposed to be a huge 22-chapter event for the X-Men. I love the X-Men. Let me go on and let me just see if this is going to be any good. And they've never read Excalibur before. They're going to look at this and say, oh, the Saturnyne character is a big joke. And then from the first couple of pages of this, and then all throughout the rest of this, what is this, a 72-page comic book? The entire rest of the comic book is we're supposed to take her seriously somehow because she's super ridiculously powerful and she's holier than thou. She's a god-type figure here in Otherworld. And yeah, no. Nobody can start reading this comic book if they haven't read anything else prior to this, which is also something that I looked at, and I was right in looking at this. I looked at all the signs. People have agreed with me. People have disagreed with me. I'm not here to, poke anybody's or open any wounds or something like that, but I did mention multiple times that the way that this story is being structured, all of these Dawn of X books, the way that the way that they're advertising all of these books, it's looking like you have to read a lot of the stories that are coming prior to this event. You can't just jump on this event. In hindsight, you can look at the idea that, hey, one of the greatest stories out there, if you didn't like it, whatever. Civil War, the original Civil War story, you could jump on that from the very beginning of the Civil War story and just be like, oh, there's some things here I don't understand, but I can still follow along with what's going on here. I know the character of Iron Man. I know the character of Captain America. I know a bunch of these other characters. Let's see what happens. There might be some things you don't understand, but for the most part, you're getting it. The characters were written, for the most part, in character, and yeah, it was enjoyable. You could follow it along. Obviously, it would work better if you started with Avengers Disassemble and then went into House of M. That would, of course, make it a whole lot easier to follow along with Civil War, but for the most part, you could just jump on. If this is your first issue jumping on with the new Hickman verse, you're going to be so lost, I'd be surprised if you even got through the whole comic book. And you would almost undoubtedly not be interested in buying the next issue. There are characters who are sort of introduced in here, some that are introduced in here, and none of it, for me, none of it really works. A lot of the part, right after that beginning part I just talked about, the part that I'm in now, I'm going to just show you, I think that the preview should be done. A lot of this stuff here, this is stuff that we saw in the Free Comic Book Day stuff with brand new characters. The first appearances are there in the Free Comic Book Day stuff. So if you could still get your hands on that stuff, the first appearances are there, not here. So even speculators have no need to get any of this stuff. It's just story. There is the art. I am going to stop for a second. I have to give credit where credit is due. Pepe Larraz is the true star on this book. Marty Gracia, too, with the colors and all that. This book is drawn in such an amazing way. I'm going to give a little bit of credit, and I know that nobody enjoys hearing this, but I've got to be fully forthcoming when I say this. When you look at the Excalibur books, and no, I didn't read Excalibur issue number 12. I just didn't I didn't see it. I didn't notice it, whatever. It just escaped my attention. I got a lot going on right now. I'm taking an intensive course outside of my work and taking care of my family. I'm taking an intensive course in school. So personal drama, oh my God, intensive courses mean that I am busting my ass and I'm taking accelerated courses that it's not just, oh, I've passed school before. No, this is postgraduate studies, and you have to have gotten really high marks. You have to have a high GPA in order to even get into these courses. And even with marking all of those ticking all those boxes, it's still really hard doing all this stuff. So yeah, it's really intensive, and unfortunately, I can't read as many comic books as I used to. So no, I didn't read. So I literally look at it as I haven't been enjoying Excalibur, so I'm not going to read it. And I knew that Excalibur was such an important book for everything, even with everybody saying, no, they said that the editors, Jordan D. White, and Tini Howard and Hickman have said, you don't have to read any of this stuff, prior to this. No, you don't have to read it. You can just jump right on. As long as you've been reading some of the stuff, you'll follow some of this. No. I've been saying for a while, you need to read the Excalibur books. And the problem that I've had is I haven't enjoyed the Excalibur books. I'm not a fan of what Tini Howard has been doing. I appreciate some of the stuff that she does as far as tarot cards. I'm not here to lay insult. I'm here to lay observable facts. And maybe I'm observing things wrong. I've never met her. I've never spoken with her. All right. But I am going to say this, even though I haven't practiced tarot in forever, I can honestly look at this and say she's got an above rudimentary level understanding. Like she's conversational in tarot. It's fun, I liken her ability to use the tarot cards like a lot of people nowadays with starting a fire. Pretty much anybody can start a fire today with a Bic lighter or with a book of matches. You know what I'm saying? I actually have the ability to rub two sticks together and start a fire because that's an interest of mine. Survivalism is actually an interest of mine. So that, I'm not better than anybody. I simply have different interests than people. And there's going to be more than enough people who are very justified in saying, who cares? Because really, who cares? Likewise with tarot, who cares? I mean, how many stories have actually been written where tarot, is the main backdrop for it? And it was like, yay! The best one, and I'm talking written literature, plays, movies, anything I've had experience of where tarot is the main backdrop for what we're looking at here, it has never been successful. It has never been something where people are like, oh my God. In fact, the closest that has ever come would be Dune Messiah. That's the second story in the Dune books. I like to consider it a trilogy, even though technically it was a sextant. Technically, there were 8 of them if you look past, but anyway, Frank Herbert, who created the Dune series, the movie's coming out pretty soon. Zendaya is going to be in it. Jason Momoa is going to be in it. There's going to be a bunch of people in it. It's going to be, I'm imagining it's going to be a pretty good movie. Anyway, the second Dune book, the second one, that's called Dune Messiah, that actually had a heavy backdrop of tarot in it. Frank Herbert was hoping that they could have sold tarot cards and made some extra money off of it. Yeah, you would have made a couple extra bucks off it in the magical community. But they also did a freaking cost analysis, and they're like, yeah, we're going to pretty much break even because the number of people who are interested in tarot and the number of people of those who we expect to buy the Dune tarot cards are not going to be interested. So the Dune tarot deck, it was literally one issue or one book that they did that in, Children of Dune, the third book. They never even brought the stuff up. So, and I can tell you honestly that the tarot stuff that was in Dune Messiah was the least favorite part of everything I was looking at, because I was like, this is so rudimentary. Frank Herbert is a scientist. Why is he talking about freaking tarot? You'd figure that Tini Howard would be able to do it better. I feel that's not the case. Why did I liken this to fire? Because, if you could take the only playing card I have close to me, Jason Fabok. Yes, guys, I got my hands on the thing. My comic book store guy is freaking awesome. So I got the Jack of Spades, or the Bat of Spades, apparently. Anyway, what do you call it? You know, the original way that tarot cards were actually used before they started making their own, like drawing their own and putting them together, was actually using a deck of playing cards. That's the way that was really done. So a lot of times if you find someone who can, who can use tarot cards, you can judge just how good they are with it by saying, okay, cool, put your tarot cards aside. Here's a deck of cards. Why don't you, my headset fell. Why don't you actually read my tarot by looking at a deck of cards? If they can't do it, you know what I'm saying? It's like being able to speak Arabic but not understanding Fusha. It's like you really don't understand Arabic. You can communicate in Arabic, you can do a whole bunch of things, but you're going to be corrected by not even a scholar, just someone who understands Fusha meaning the language of the Quran. You know what I'm saying? You're going to make too many actual grammatical errors if you're just speaking colloquially. So likewise, I feel like her understanding of tarot is colloquial. It's the Llewellyn stuff as opposed to the actual getting into tarot cards. So even her tarot stuff is just, I don't find any interest in her book, in her writing, in the backdrop and the stories behind it. And just like with Pepe Larraz and this book, like killing it with this book with the art, she had Marcus Toe for most of those stories, who is one of the best artists that Marvel has. Local guy, Canadian. And that's one of the only reasons why a lot of people have been continuing with Excalibur in the first place. Everybody? No, but a lot of people, yes. Check out the comments for all of the Excalibur reviews I've done. The art was phenomenal. The story was... And even then, all of that, I mean, the way that Apocalypse dressed in there, he's dressed like that in here also, but he wasn't dressed like that in any of the other stories that we've seen. So while we hear, oh, they're architects for doing this, I look at this and I'm just like, architects of what exactly? They can't even get their art together. They can't even get together enough to say, let's make Apocalypse look like this. And there hasn't even... I tried to speculate, I tried to read into it and say, maybe he's only dressed like that when he's doing the magical stuff. No, recently he's been doing the magical stuff over in the frickin' X-Men books. Nothing. He's still dressed like regular old Apocalypse. So I'm not seeing any uniformity in this, and that's crushing to me. So when Saturnyne comes out, and this is all the stuff that we've seen, like I said, in the Free Comic Book Day 2020 stuff where she pulls out the tarot cards. The tarots are beautiful in here, but there's only, 6 tarots that are pulled out? For crying out loud. Saturnyne does them, and then later on, this was actually really good. Tarot shows up, and she gives these, so 5. There's only 5. And then she gives her... Well, basically, it's not even her interpretation of it. She gives a layman's understanding of the way these work. It's funny because I thought that the original tarot stuff that was being done here was very layman to begin with, but I don't know. What do I know? Anyway, whomever this reading is meant for, I hope it reaches them. Things seem very serious from tarot. This is one of the white pages. It sounds like that would be cool, and the question is, who is this reading meant for? Is it meant for Apocalypse? Probably not, because Betrayal absolutely should have been one of those 5 cards from what I'm seeing here. Because if the cards couldn't recognize it, maybe I'm just a genius, because I saw it written all throughout this, all throughout what we've read before, including issue number 12 of X-Men, which was just one of the best X-Men stories that I've read, like so much detail hidden in those pages. And then this just comes out and I'm like, I got more out of X-Men 12 than I got out of this story. You see, later on in this book, when Summoner, the High Summoner, shows up with the freaking Cthulhu monster and he's got Banshee unconscious there, I could see this written plain. Maybe I'm just, I don't know, maybe it's because I read into things so much that they left enough hints that it was like, you left too many hints. I figured this out. I'm sure I'm not the only person who figured this out. I looked at this and I'm just like, this guy, there's going to be a huge betrayal here, isn't there? And they're like, I really don't even want to continue with this review because this so Apocalypse is like, oh no, what happened? And the X-Men are like, oh no, what happened? It's like, oh, we were attacked and I was barely able to get through and I came back and I was able to save him, but the whole time just like, but where's Unis, right? Because they beat up Banshee, which is like, wow, just like I said, here's the glass cannon, so maybe he's going to be able to, Unis will be able to stay there, and you can't touch Unis the Untouchable, but they touched him, all right. Yeah, they put together the gate, and they're like, we got to rally the X-Men. It's like, maybe he's going to be working with them. They got to find a way to get the, because Apocalypse said, I'm going to rally the X-Men. We're going to go in there, and I'm going to come back, and it's going to be my grand return. I'm going to skip by a lot of the stuff that happened there because all of it was completely fruitless. Because, of course, they show up. Mr. Sinister goes and gets silly at one point, which is, yay, whatever. Kitty Pryde looks beautiful as ever. No, I'm not going to start calling her Kate Pryde. I'm just not. Sorry, don't be offended. They put together a team. At first, let's go back to that one tarot card of the Hanged Man. When I saw this team that was being put together, I tried to make sense out of it. I'm like, okay, I got this. Apocalypse is going forward. This is not all of the people who have the swords. We know in general the people who are going to go back with the swords because we've seen them in what is it? The first one, right? The first tarot card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the fifth one. We see all the people with their swords and the swords and whatnot, and the swords are actually named in here. But anyway, with this, I see this first team that's going over for the Hanged Man. The way that when I see Havoc and Beast in there, I'm thinking to myself immediately, okay, hold on. You got Havoc and Beast. Havoc is one of the Hellions. Now, if the Hellions comic actually counts for anything, they're going to show that this guy is effed. He's effed in the head. What was the purpose of the Hellions comic? One of my favorite X comic books that are out right now, it was Dawn of X. One of my favorite X comic books that are out. Holy crap, I love what they've been doing with him. He's badass in his encounter with Maddie Pryor. Absolutely amazing. Under boobs for the win. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, this isn't that Alex. This is regular Alex. So what was the purpose of Hellions even being put out then? I don't understand. Because this is not the same Alex. This is an Alex who seems to have his crap together. Was there a moment in here that I missed where they said, prior to Hellions, this is what happened? Because that would maybe make more sense. No, instead it's just me. So, and Beast, who is effed in the brain the whole time. Beast that we've been seeing in the X-Force comic books, I've been speculating, he's got some Dark Beast in him right now. Like, the guy's evil. We don't really see a whole lot of that in here. We see that he's one of the guys who goes back to look for reinforcements, which of course he does because he's freaking Beast. Who brings Beast on a mission unless you need somebody smart? His strength and all that stuff doesn't counter the fact that he is also kind of a glass cannon. You hit him too hard, like especially in the jaw, he's going to get knocked unconscious. Every time you read Beast stories in the past, whether it's in the X-Men or the Avengers or his solo series, or in the anything where he teams up with somebody, he's always getting knocked out. The guy's got a glass jaw, for crying out loud. So there's no other reason to bring him except for some kind of a betrayal. Doesn't really happen though, does it? I'm figuring we got some, two really messed up people in here. Hey, look, here's Archangel. Find me somebody more effed in the head than Archangel, right? Even when he's sitting down and hanging out with frickin' Archangel, when Apocalypse is hanging out with Archangel a little bit, he says to him at one point, he's like, I'm glad to see you in your true form. And I'm reading him with that voice in my head, the 92 X-Men cartoon in my head, I am as far beyond mutants as mutants are beyond you. Like, that's a brilliant voice. I love it. And that's what I want to read things in. I couldn't really do that with Apocalypse here because this was a very different Apocalypse. Moving on. Richter is in here. You got to expect that because if you have been reading the Excalibur comic books, that, you know what? I'm going to show you this meme right here, okay? This meme, pretty much, I put together this meme. This is how I view Apocalypse's relationship right now. How he, Archangel was always the main person who he would look at, and now when he sees Richter, like, this is obviously a joke on that meme. Anyway, this is meme. This memed itself. This copied another meme as far as I'm concerned. I'm horribly dissatisfied with the way that's happened. But anyway, I figured, oh, Banshee got messed up, so of course Siren is going to go. And she does. So that, okay, that one at least made sense. Polaris goes. You know, we got to have a powerhouse there. But it's like, but if you're going to put these two together, it's like, okay, but then you got to mention the Maddie thing. And that wasn't mentioned in this book. 72 pages. They couldn't find room to put that. They put in all this other silly, fluffy stuff that we already saw in the freaking Free Comic Book Day stuff. Why do you have to repeat those same pages? Why would you ever do that? Why not just do something new? No, they just said, let's just take these 10 pages or so out and put them in here. Well, good job with that. And of course, Summoner, and then, so Summoner, the High Summoner, and Landslide go in. It's like, okay, that's cool. This is going to lead to something. It, unfortunately, just gets rushed by. I saw this team, and I'm like, this is going to do something amazing, right? Absolutely not. Biggest letdown I could have possibly imagined. Apocalypse in and of himself is such a little punk in this. He's sad the whole time. Monet is trying to be tough, and she doesn't really get the whole tough thing. Oh, there's a map of the other world thing here where, hey, look, something is highlighted. Something is highlighted. Mercator. I don't know what Heavens to Murgatroyd means here. You know, Mercator, it's a joke. Anyway, I don't know what Mercator is here, but it's highlighted. It's highlighted in blue as opposed to red. Remember, the highlighted stuff is always supposed to be something important, unless it's Children of the Atom #1, which apparently they don't feel the need to put out at all, even though that was highlighted in red. I have to give full credit to Chillmonger for noticing that before I did. He actually brought it to my attention. Here it looks like we're going where we're going. So we got the Seelie and the Unseelie courts if you're looking at mythology and Shakespeare. And apparently they're going to move down. They have to move through the realms to get to Arakoa. What do you call it? They're moving forward, and they've got Banshee's body. And apparently Apocalypse was in such a rush. We're talking about, what, 3,000 years? Is that what we heard? It's supposed to be approximately 3,000 years since he left Otherworld in order to, you know, like the barrier to be put up so they couldn't get to... Yeah. So here's this immortal being who's waiting for something. This is apparently what he was waiting for. And he's just got to rush to get back in. He's been taking his time doing everything. And now all of a sudden it's like, we got to rush to get back in there. So meanwhile, here's Rachel Gray, Prestige, and her brother, Cable, shows up. Young Cable, Babel. They show up and they're hanging out, and they're going to go into Sean Cassidy's mind, Banshee's mind. And when they go in there, they see that there was actually a lie. It took a while to actually get in there. First, they wind up seeing... This is actually something interesting when you see the X of Swords or the 10 of Swords or the crossing of swords, right? Because it's an X, or the crossing of swords. When you see all this stuff in there, stuff that they apparently didn't expect, you see... I don't know exactly what this is. Maybe somebody is more familiar with this aspect of the X-Men comic books than I am, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something from the Hickman verse that I just don't recall. It's Comic Book University, but anybody who thinks that means that I know everything, I've never said that I have, and I've gone out of my way to say I don't know everything, so there's really something wrong with you if you think that I know everything. I don't. And anybody who says they do is full of crap. Anyway, this is a university. That means everybody participates. So if anybody's familiar with exactly what this is, I figure this is the power core for... I'm going to show you the last page here. For Sword. Now, this was actually a really good idea, because I don't know exactly what they're going to be doing with this, because Sword was disbanded. All of that stuff was put down. Plus, we also saw most recently that in the Empire stuff that Abigail Brand is going to be doing all sorts of crazy stuff from this point on. She's pissed at the world. She had to mess up a wedding just in order to make her point, because she's an absolute bee. Only bees, only sons of guns turn around and they interrupt a wedding to make it personal about them, to make it all about them. It's like, dude, bridesmaids don't even look good. The bridesmaids have the worst dresses imaginable, so they don't look as good as the bride. I'm saying, so that was really messed up. Anyway, so you have the sword stuff here in the white pages over here, just a little bit about, what all this is. Now, I actually really like that, because that was a surprise that I didn't see coming. That's my Excalibur moment, or my Age of Ultron moment. You didn't see that coming? No, I actually didn't. But what I did see coming so blatantly was Apocalypse walking up and hanging out, and I knew exactly how this was going to happen. He goes, they're all standing there like, yeah, we're awesome. And Apocalypse goes walking up, and this I didn't see. Excuse me. Apocalypse, who's been the strongest character we've ever come across, pretty much ever, gets down and he bows. And just in sorrow, and like the look of shame on his face. I have left you. I can't even do in that voice. But what voice can I do for Apocalypse in this? The great Apocalypse, who's one of the most terrifying enemies the X-Men or anybody has ever had to face before. You have Apocalypse in a book. People are like, oh shoot, things just got real. Well, they made Apocalypse go up and just, I'm so sorry. I abandoned you. It's the best I can do. So I decided to do the Bruce Pritchard brother love voice for this. I love you. His face needs to be a lot redder than this gray. But anyway, he just, reaching out, miserable, sad, sorry sack of crap. Just, please forgive me. I am the pinnacle of evolution, and I am as far beyond you as... But please, I throw myself in the mercy of my original horse. These are subordinates to him. These are subordinates to him. The original subordinates, you might argue. This dude's bowing to them. And the idea they're just looking is like, Father, please. They're proud and everything. I'm like, if you don't see the betrayal coming, bro, you're an idiot. But he's just sitting there. I'm right? Do I see? I don't see tears coming out of his eyes, but they might as well. And it's his daughter who runs him through war. His daughter runs him through. Yeah, I saw that coming, Quicksilver. Sorry, you're going to die alone on this one. This was so obvious. But again, the art, beautiful. The no from Siren there, man, that was, I can just see everybody go flying. Like that was cool. I dug on that. That was very cool. But again, all of this stuff could have been foreseen by anybody if they would have just stopped and waited for these two to figure it out. More specifically, her, because Babel's got to become a power source. The whole friendship thing and the big betrayal and heel turn thing, it could have actually been turned into something, but it wasn't. We just see this between the High Summoner and Landslide, and there was not even a full page devoted to this right before that. Okay, technically there kind of sort of was, but not for the most part. It was not. It was just a, hey, I thought you were on our side. I'm a summoner of a great many things, one of them being lies. It's like, most of all, lies. Well, you're a punk. Because now I see this, and right away my mind goes to Thanos in the movies. I've taught you many things, Gamora. Lying was not one of them. That's why you're so bad at it. Like, that was amazing. This was just, I'm really good at lying. The idea that Apocalypse was fooled by this is sad. The idea that Apocalypse, one of the most patient character, probably the most patient character in all of the Marvel Universe, that's actually on Earth 616. I'm not talking about the galactic figures like the Grandmaster and stuff like, no. I'm talking about on Earth. Probably the most patient character is Apocalypse. But he's just like, okay, finish the gate, guys, let's go. We gotta go. We gotta hurry up. No, I don't see that. I can't imagine that I can't imagine anybody writing that thinking, oh, this will be good and the people will really like this. Saturnyne, who is so ridiculous, maybe this is perfect the way that she's written in here, but like we saw her being silly in the beginning and then later on she's just like, I'm not going to fight. And everybody's like, couldn't you just end this right now? Maybe she could, maybe she can't. I don't know. I see her using tarot cards and being kind of hard of hearing. That's all I know of Saturnyne by looking at this. I actually know more about her than that, but again, I know that lots of people know Saturnyne way better than I do. When Polaris goes and pulls down the thing and she's just, maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. Like the Titanic is going down. Maybe this is just the way it's supposed to be. Dude, if you're not willing to fight for your people, why are your people willing to fight for you? That's the whole big thing. I couldn't get that through my head. That's probably the biggest problem that I had with this comic book is people willing to fight and die for a land where the land and the people in charge of the land don't care about them at all. At all. That's something I never understood. This, to me, maybe there's going to be a lot of people who do enjoy the idea of this because, like, I didn't understand the Crusades. I mean, I understand the concept. I know the historical whatever, but it's like you believe that your God is more powerful than everyone, right? But if you hear the slightest offense, I have to defend my God. If your God's all powerful, why doesn't he defend himself? If he's not defending himself, why do you care in the first place? I never understood the idea of defending God, defending the most powerful of creation. I never understood the point of that. Even when I was a kid, I never understood the point of that. If you truly believe that your God is the most powerful thing in existence, somebody saying something, a crossword or drawing a picture, whatever, should be the most innocuous thing in the world. It was like, really? You're going to find out, bud. And you don't even need to say that out loud because you know it to be true. But like this, I see this to be so weak. I don't see a single strong character in this entire book. Cyclops and Jean Grey, maybe. I do like the idea that they were proud of their son. They were proud of Babel in this. It's about time somebody was, because even original Cable isn't that impressed with Babel if we look at this right. Monet talking with Saturnyne in this. I hope something develops out of this proper, because I think that she would, much like a Wild Child thing. She's the type who would punch you just to see if you could take it. And if you can, okay, you've earned my respect. So that's something I can also see as potentially being good in the future of this book. But honestly, since I didn't, like I've said so many times, since I didn't enjoy the Excalibur books, and I knew I could read the stars or the tarot and see that you were gonna that more than any of the other books, the Excalibur books were gonna lead into the Ten of Swords, 16 issues, now 22 issues, where there's nothing else X-related you can read except this Ten of Swords stories and the various chapters thereof. I just looked at this as I'm not gonna be excited about this event, and I get into the first real issue because all the prologues I'm like, But with this one, I just look at it as, yay, the first part of this should, and it's I didn't expect it to be 72 pages. I haven't been looking at the stuff in the future, the on the horizon stuff. I just haven't had time to do that stuff, so I didn't even know this was going to be 72 pages. I got this and was like, damn. What is the price on this? What is it? I don't even see a pro. Oh, $6.99. I paid $6.99 US for this. It's actually not bad for 72 pages. I'm impressed. I'd expect them to give us a $10 price. $6.99 US isn't bad. That's about 10 Canadian. Anyway, yeah, I don't see that as being bad at all. You know what I'm saying? For what we got in the book. But what we did get, to me, wasn't impressive enough for me to say, it's not unique, but I like the format that they're going to say, hey, here's all these books. There are no tie-ins to get. Everything is a tie. I just don't like the idea that everything is a tie-in and there is no. I don't have an outlet for my mutant infatuation if I'm not into Ten of Swords. Everything has to be this at this point. So they've kind of pulled all the tie-ins together. That's a good idea if you think that people are going to really like your story. The problem is I'm not really a fan of this. It's your typical Hickman trope. I've mentioned it before, where he introduces a whole bunch of super ridiculously, innocuously powered characters. Characters who they are powerful is their power, right? Like, what is the power of this fish person who answers to Saturnyne? The power is really powerful. How do you define that? They've destroyed a sun even when a sun tried to go full Cthulhu on them. They turned it into like ribbons or something like that, disintegrated the tentacle. Okay, cool for my anime background. But aside from that, this is a story. This is a thing. This is an event that simply was not geared to me. So look, if I do like something, I'm going to mention that I like the thing. The typical thing that a lot of people like about my... I'm giving you reasons to not look at my reviews right now. That's basically what I'm doing, because I'm forthcoming. I'm full, forthcoming with this. One of the reasons why a lot of people like to read my or listen to my reviews is because I will go in depth with my character lore and my story lore and stuff like that, my art lore, all this, all the things that I know about comic books. I'm kind of like a very dilettante style comic book historian. All right, I'm about as amateur gets, but I do have that credential, in my background. The main stories that they're focusing on here is Excalibur, which is comic books that I've maybe read 10 of all of the Excalibur books in the past, like the first 10 issues and maybe a little bit of here, there, whatever. I have studied some of the lore of, studied some of the lore of the different Earths, which were all, for the most part, introduced in the Excalibur books. But I'm not a huge fan of the Captain Britain character. I'm not a huge fan of the Excalibur books. I'm not a huge fan of Teenie Howard's Excalibur story. And I just haven't been a huge fan. No disrespect towards her personally. That's not who I am. But as far as her writing, I can't remember a single title that I've liked of hers that I've seen of this relatively new comic book writer. I've been more like, one of these days she's probably going to be really good. But for right now, I really don't like her storytelling ability, her writing. I just don't like it. So being as forthcoming and face front as I possibly can, true believers. That's just my stance on this. So the typical reviews that you get out of me, with, oh, well, let's go into the history and blah, blah, blah. I'm probably not going to be able to do that. Based on this first story creation, I feel like I'm not going to be able to do that here. So I almost feel like I'm going to be a new reader for some of this stuff. I'm going to be looking at the stories that I know of a lot of these characters backing up. That's going to be my reviews going forward. I'm probably not going to be the most knowledgeable person imaginable for here. I would probably imagine, and I hate the idea, I feel like the bigger guys need to be giving more credit to the lower guys, giving more eyes on the lower guys, because aside from Blurred Without Fear, I don't really interact with anybody who's bigger than me, who's got a bigger audience than me, But a lot of the guys who have a smaller audience than me, I will reach out to them. Whether they choose to return, and be like, oh, hey, you want to talk to me? Yeah, let's talk, dude. Hey, let's talk. Maybe these guys don't like my reviews. I don't know. Maybe they didn't see them. I don't know. For the most part, I don't care. I will reach out to anybody who I see who has a smaller channel than me and have a conversation about, their channel and try and promote their channel and whatnot. But in this case, I'm going to promote somebody who's bigger than me, who's also never reached out to somebody smaller, apparently, or almost never. And that's Rob. Rob, probably the biggest guy on YouTube as far as comic books are concerned. And you can tell comics don't have that much love because how big is his channel compared to some of these other channels out there, right? Video games. That's what people really like, as far as the nerdy culture stuff. Anyway, Rob is a huge fan of Mad Jim Jaspers. You got to say it the way that he says it. Oh my God, Mad Jim Jaspers. Gosh, Mad Jim Jaspers. Anyway, I love when he does that. So he's a huge fan of Mad Jim Jaspers, who's a huge Excalibur fan. So therefore, I am imagining he's a huge Excalibur fan. His reviews are probably going to be best. I know people go, well, he doesn't do reviews. Yeah, he does reviews. He does reviews. That's what he does. He does reviews. So anyway, go and check out a lot of his stuff because, boom, if you're looking for that high culture stuff. If you're going to be looking for somebody who understands magical lore and the sciences, and that's probably and my own understanding of the X-Men from, you know, the first issue, the first creation back in, was it 1963? I think it was 1963, maybe 64. Anyway, I think it was 63. Whatever it was, the first X-Men comic books all the way till now. Yeah, you'll find some stuff there. You like my particular take on reviews, my humor in reviews, cool. If you don't like a critical review, and you want to watch my reviews anyways, if you want to hate watch one of my reviews, I had a lot of hate on my Giant Size X-Men issue number, Storm, the Storm one, Giant Size X-Men Storm. I didn't like that book. The stuff wasn't in character. People telling me I don't know the history of the character. Interesting. The one, I've had to block 5 people. Well, not have. I chose to block 5 people from the channel because, one, I'm under a lot of stress right now with my own personal life, doing my intensive study courses right now. It's a lot on my plate. It's 20 hours of in-class time. And that's not including all the times that we go 15 minutes to a half an hour overtime, which is 5 days a week. 20 hours of in-class lecture time, not to mention all of the homework and the studies and the group work that I've got to do. It's a lot of freaking time away from my day. I quit my day job being an English teacher, being an online English teacher. I had to quit that in order to do this class. So a lot of stress. Anyway, so when you come up and you just, you don't know anything, you boo, 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 boo. Depending on, if you're at least showing something, if you're giving me something to work with, I might respond to you. If you're still a jerk about it, I'm just going to block you from the channel because honestly, F you. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but if you want to come up and start insulting me, I don't want you on my channel. It's my channel. I will do what I want. I will cultivate the audience that I choose on my channel. I will block you from the channel. Boom, forever banned. Don't ask to come back. I'm not interested in kitties being on, and child-minded people being on my freaking channel making nonsensical comments like that. There was one guy that actually did try to get a little bit intelligent on me, but he had a very wrong opinion on a comic book. He brought up the comic book and says, I've clearly never read it. I showed him that I've actually read the entire series by showing reviews on I did reviews on the comic book that he's talking about and the series prior. And I explained how I've had a conversation with Chris Claremont, one of the creators of Storm, and not a close personal friend, but a friend of mine, Leonard Kirk, who was the artist on the issue that he's talking about, who had the direct notes, more clarity on those notes than anybody else, coming from Ta-Nehisi Coates, the writer on that. I've talked to him in person, face-to-face, and online. I talked to him in between just to see, hey, what's up, bud? And yeah, guess what? That guy was 100% wrong. Newsflash, Storm is not a goddess. And even getting the powers, albeit temporarily, of the Orisha, who are gods, getting the powers of a god does not actually make you a god. And that was only temporary. So no, she was not a god. Telling me I don't know anything about the upkeep of a character, when clearly I know I've got insider information on this, and I tell you the insider information and where my sources come from, and you still say, well, I think that if you just read a little bit closer, no, dude, done. You're done, and by the way, you're also an idiot. This almost becomes a Professor Bill reads the mean comments. Anyway, I'm not here for that nonsense. I'm not here for that nonsense, and I don't have the patience for that nonsense right now. So, trying times for me, which means I'm going to be a little bit harder on the people who are just absolute idiots about a freaking review that they don't like. If you loved this comic book, I love you, man. That's awesome. Tell me the things you liked about don't say anything, or tell me the things you liked about the comment, or about the comic book. Tell me the things that you disagree with me on, but just don't be a dick about it. If you're a dick, bye-bye. Like, no, like what, my channel's going to be a freaking sausage fest? No, I don't want any dicks on my channel. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to happen. So if you're cool, you want to just, actually, I like the book because blah, 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 blah. I think that, you're being too harsh because blah, blah, blah. Hey, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. Don't start making things up. Don't try to read into things that I say because I'm being completely forthcoming. That's just who I am. I don't hold stuff back. Can you tell? Anyway, guys, that's my review. That's my review. That's everything that I've got about this giant-sized freaking book that was actually really well priced. Even though I didn't like the book, the content that you get inside and that freaking art, holy crap. I feel like the book's got to do a whole lot better. A whole lot better. Especially since it's the only X title that we're going to get for the most part is anything that's related to the Ten of Swords. So anyway, guys, I'm out. Like the video, watch an ad, support your local comic book channels and local comic book stores. And I'm out. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.